All right, hello everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. My name's Matt Trentman. As of last week, I'm the new president of the Rattlesnake Creek Watershed Group Board. Thank you. We also have Judy over here, who's a board member as well. So if you have any questions about our group or what we do, feel free to, she's sitting over here at the circular table. If you have any questions about what we do, feel free to grab one of us after this presentation. This is the last in our series of rattlesnake stories for this fall, winter, spring period. We also had talks from Jerry Junkel about bears last month. We had a talk about the history of the area in the National Recreation Area in the Rattlesnake. What was our fourth one? I was trying to think of that we had last fall. Oh, yeah. Well, we have plenty of stories, and they're all recorded by MCAT. So MCAT's also recording today. Thanks to them for a grant for this free recording. And we post those on our website, so you can go and look at any of the stories that we've had recorded over the past couple of years on our website, and we'll get those updated with all of this year's in the next few weeks. But today we have a great group of folks from multiple different agencies and private organizations as well, talking about fire, the history of fire, and what's happening with mitigation now and into the future. So I will turn it over to them, and they'll introduce themselves as they round robin giving these presentations. So first is Ashleigh.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ashleigh Burwick. I'm the Fire Management Officer. Switch?
Yeah, thanks.
Hello. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ashleigh Burwick. I'm the Fire Management Officer at the Missoula unit, Montana DNRC. I've been working there since 1997 and involved in fire response and suppression since 1994. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the fire protection map, the fire protection layers that are up there in the Rattlesnake Watershed Group area, and then I'll show you some of the historical fires that we have GIS data for. So I just pulled up this map initially just to, obviously you guys are probably familiar with the watershed is, but just give a quick overview of that, and then I'm going to direct you guys to the DNRC interactive fire map. So we have the DNRC has this DNRC interactive fire map. It's got a public-facing website, so anyone can access this map at any time if you want to check it out. It's a treasure trove of information. All you got to do is Google DNRC interactive fire map, and you'll get directed there. So there's multiple, all kinds of information in here. You know, we got different types of maps. So we have base map gallery, tons of maps in there, and then different layers, so you can pull up all kinds of layers. I'm logged into our site right now, so there's obviously more layers when you're logged in, but you can see active fires, you can see current incidents, current perimeters, red flag warnings, current weather things, all kinds of information. So obviously the confluence of the watershed starts up there, the head end of the Rattlesnake Wilderness, and then comes down towards where it intersects with the Clark Fork River here. So the first layer I'm going to show you, bear with me as I click through these tabs. And so that's the Montana fire protection layer. So obviously with the Rattlesnake Recreation Area and Rattlesnake Wilderness, most of the upper end of the Rattlesnake watershed is in within the U.S. Forest Service fire protection area. That's the green area you see. The blue area, that's the DNRC. So that's the DNRC fire protection. That's all the blue you see. The yellow up here up to the west is the CSKT. And so we don't have any fire protection until you kind of get down towards the lower end of the watershed here on Mount Jumbo and on the below the power line there on the west side of the wilderness there. And then the yellow or kind of whitish area you see, that's the Missoula County Fire Protection. So that's either Missoula Fire Department, Missoula Rural Fire Department, or East Missoula Fire Department. So that's all covered within the county. And I'll show you that overlay layer here. So that's all the municipal fire districts. And so we have in a lot of areas, you'll see some overlap in some of these areas where the black areas encompass either the blue or the green, and that's called what we call stacked protection. If you click on any one of these areas, you can see who covers it. So like that one is Missoula Fire Department right there. And that kind of shows where all the Missoula Fire Department area has their fire protection. And so in the state of Montana, there's classified forested, non-forested land. And anyone that has classified forest, they have to pay an assessment to the state of Montana for fire protection. And then through the master cooperative agreement or six-party agreement, there's overlapping protection offsets is what we call it. And so in these areas that overlap, they got dual protection by either us and then one of the municipal fire departments or us in the Forest Service. And so the protection's stacked, if that makes sense to anyone there. Because they're also within one of the rural fire districts areas, and so they pay a tax or a mill to that. You guys got any questions so far?
Yeah, could you point out where Lolo Street
Mike.
is? I have no idea where
Yeah.
on this map anything.
Lolo Street, you said?
Kind of a baseline.
Or repeat the question if you don't want to give a mic.
Oh, gotcha. You want me to zoom in more? Yeah. Okay, perfect. I can do that. Does that help? You want me to go in more?
We lost the streets, so where are the streets? It's hard to see that.
Yeah.
Sorry. You know what, you have just go forward.
You literally, okay. Yeah, I'll go back to the other view.
We have the streets. We have the streets. There you go.
Yeah, I just went to streets view, and with the projector and the light, it was kind of hard to see. So
It's down at the bottom by number 14.
okay, is that what you wanted to see? Okay. And so that's just kind of a quick overview. So DNRC obviously has like the fire protection up here on the jumbo and the classified forest. This down here is going to be Missoula Fire Department. And then up in here you can see where we have some stack protection where it's both us and the fire department. You guys got any other questions on fire protection so far? Okay. So I'm going to zoom back out. And so let me know if, can you guys see this kind of shaded area right here? Can you guys see that okay? And so this is where we have some of the historical fires that have kind of been in or adjacent to the watershed. So that's the West Riverside fire, roughly 3,000 acres. The fire was in 2011. And as you go up the Rattlesnake, you can see some of the other historical fires here. This is the Bees Cove fire. That's probably like the most well-known one that happened recently. This fire happened in 2019. It was up there in the Rattlesnake Rec area, and and they did a lot of work. I know the Forest Service, the management teams did a lot of work around the trail system that were in there, and then out here to the east, around the power line infrastructure, around that fire. Further up, Mineral Prim. This fire was in 2003. Up there, when we had all those fires in 2003, that one was up in the headwaters. And you can see how big the Mineral Prim fire was. It was a very large fire that happened in 2003. So the whole gray area, 20,000 plus acres, the Mineral Prim. Adjacent to that one, the Boulder Lake fire that happened in 2022. That was one we had late fall 3 years ago. Started in the wilderness, adjacent to Boulder Lake, and then pushed out towards the east.
Did those two fires have the same direction? They kind of moved eastward?
Yes, yeah, a lot of fires that start up here in kind of this general country, they have a tendency to kind of burn towards the east. The prevalent winds, the topography, all that stuff kind of drive that fire. That fire burned and to the south, and kind of the head end of the Gold Creek and upper Rattlesnake area adjacent to Boulder Lake. And it's kind of hard. There's other fire perimeters inside of these fire perimeters. Bull's Metal Fire also happened in 2003. And so when the Liberty Fire burned 14 years later, it kind of burned all around the, that Liberty Fire burned all around the Bull's Metal Fire because of the way the vegetation was after that fire had burned through there. So, and then there's some other smaller fires that have happened up above those. The Ashleigh Fire in like 2012, kind of to the west of the upper end of the Rattlesnake. And then, yeah, the same fire, another Ashleigh Fire that happened in 2000. So these two, same fire name, different years. And so, yeah, there's been a lot of fires in the watershed, but like the most prevalent one that's happened recently is obviously the Bees Cove Fire down here, and it basically burned adjacent to the Rattlesnake Creek. So, you guys got any questions on historical fires that have occurred? Okay, that's all I got for you guys right now. Just talking about the fire protection and the historical fires that have occurred in the Rattlesnake area.
Hi, hello. Hi, I'm Olivia Anderson. I'm with the Montana DNRC as well. Fire Adapted Communities Coordinator is my title, and I'm out of the Missoula unit. And I have the pleasure of welcoming our Upper Rattlesnake Firewise board is here, and I'll let you guys do the explanation of what it means to be a Firewise recognized community, but it's really awesome opportunity for Mary, Louise, and Lucy are gonna come up and talk. They're gonna talk about what it's like to be a Firewise recognized community and things they have planned, so take it away.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. This was really interesting, Ashleigh, and it kind of gives a context for what we're doing, and thanks to Olivia, who's been with us at all of our meetings and helpful. So every year, as was just presented, devastating wildfires burn across the United States, and we're living where wildfires are a real risk. And the Firewise USA program through the National Fire Protection Association is helping us do all that we can to protect our homes, neighborhood, and the safety of all of our neighbors. Our neighborhood received certified recognition as a Firewise site, and you can see the sign if you go just past the turnoff to the wilderness area in October of 2023. Firewise USA helps band communities together to take preventative action against wildfires, such as removing downed trees and dry vegetation, hardening homes, and creating a safe zone around your home. To earn and maintain fire recognition as a Firewise USA site, our community must meet annually a set of voluntary criteria, hours of work, and money spent on Firewise preparedness and mitigation. As part of our criteria, we completed a community wildfire assessment encompassing all 60 neighborhood properties with the assistance of DNRC, USDA, USFS, OEM, and the Missoula Rural Fire District, to stop the alphabet soup. The community risk assessment needs to be updated at a minimum of every 5 years. The risk assessment was the basis for creating our 3-year action plan that identifies and prioritizes community-wide efforts to be taken each year. These may include overseeing local activities, meetings, events, investments, and homeowner education. For several years, many of us have been having our properties assessed, and we had utilized matching grants for mitigation. With Firewise, we have now established the 3-year plan to further our efforts throughout our neighborhood. I'll bullet point some specific efforts that our board has accomplished. We've provided residents with information to mitigate personal and community wildfire risk, assisted homeowners to conduct free wildfire home assessments with particular focus on the 3 home ignition zones. mapping septic tank locations and potential water sources for emergency responders, scheduling wildfire risk and preparedness meetings with residents, scheduling forest health assessments by the DNRC Missoula Unit Forester for property owners along Madera, Altura, and Siesta Drive, the east side of Siesta Drive, researching grants and cost share programs to pursue building a Firewise neighborhood website and implementing fuels prescriptions, and scheduling Rattlesnake Woods community volunteer days where neighbors help other neighbors reduce their home wildfire risks. The first one we did was last July 13th. We've provided education information and encouraged resident evacuation planning, and we've pursued grant and cost share funds to implement fuels reduction work along the east side, the west slope face of the community. And now I'll turn it over to Mary Louise, our fearless leader.
Hi, I'm Mary Louise. I'm the Firewise board president. And we have a great group, a great board who's very, very committed. I want to go into lessons learned in our neighborhood efforts here. Our neighborhood is one expansive unit, and wildfire risk is shared among community members and their properties. We assess and mitigate our individual fire vulnerability and hazards not only for our own family and property, but for those of our neighbors also. Joining together as a neighborhood around this safety issue is empowering, and neighbors are very thankful for this endeavor to safeguard our community. The direction and assistance of all our government agencies is invaluable, and we couldn't do it without them. We have hopes and goals for our neighborhood. We do have that 3-year plan in place right now. Our neighborhood is unique. It starts from the southern border at Woods Gulch, so we're way down here. And it goes north. So basically, it encompasses this area right here. And it does include, we're wrapped around by the Rattlesnake Rec area. I mean, we have this one little area right here that is not, that accesses down into the county here. But other than that, it's rec area all around us. We're living in the woods. And so it is almost completely surrounded by the Rattlesnake Rec area. It is relatively level ground from Rattlesnake Creek over here, eastward, as you can see here, and then we have a steep hill, very wooded, all the way into the rec area. So I mean, we've got a very heavily wooded community there, and it's high, fire risk. So we've got to deal with that. We would like to have the entire neighborhood regularly assessing and mitigating in order to bring us to a point where we could accomplish a controlled burn throughout most of our neighborhood. Now just look at that. That's going to be a challenge right there. We have talked about a controlled burn from Siesta Drive, which is right here, west, which is the west-facing hillside here, going up the hill, over and into the rec area. If we could accomplish that, in the years to come, then, and if it were possible, then we just might be able to say that our neighborhood could survive an oncoming wildfire. Our Rattlesnake Woods Firewise board members include 8 neighborhoods residents, the Missoula County Office of Emergency Management Wildfire Mitigation Specialist, who's here, and Montana Department of Natural Resources and Conservation Fire Adapted Communities Coordinator, who's also here. The Firewise USA program is co-sponsored by the USDA Forest Service, the U.S. Department of the Interior, and the National Association of State Foresters. For information on becoming a Firewise site, as we did in 2023, speak to Olivia or call the DNRC or go to Firewise USA. Just Google Firewise USA, how to join, and you'll get the information. It is very worthwhile. Thank you.
I guess I'll give a brief moment for any questions for Mary Louise or Lucy about their experience being a Firewise recognized community.
I'm just curious about the evacuation plan. Like if evacuations have to happen up there and there's one road, what's the plan there?
I'm going to let John, another board member. I'll let John, another board member, answer.
So we've been involved in trying to coordinate with our sponsors here, and the plan is essentially, oh, sorry. The plan is essentially that we're all on Smart 9111, and when we become notified, we have already, in our design, every member of the community has their go packet. And when we've been notified to go, it's highly suggested and desired that we just pay attention to what they say and leave. Because the matter of the fact is, if we don't heed their warnings, there's only one way in and one way out. And as soon as, I've personal experience, as soon as things start to bottleneck, it's just going to be difficult. So the plan is to be involved with Smart 9111, and then when the warning is given, the sheriffs will also come around and notify on a regular basis. And we're developing a plan to practice animal removal. You know, people getting together and just a mass exodus, basically. So that's where we're at with that.
Could I ask, though, as a follow-up, what is planned to prevent that bottleneck?
Basically, the plan to prevent that bottleneck is just to heed the warnings and leave when we're asked to leave.
Yeah. Let me add that we've been told by the experts, the Sheriff's Department, that they, depending on what happens, they can't give us a straight plan, A, B, C, D, here's the timing, in 30 minutes do this, because fire does not follow a schedule. I mean, it's going to do its own thing. They will be paying attention. They will be ahead of the game for us. They will inform us. It's up to us to listen, you know, in a timely fashion, and to check on our neighbors. And this is one thing we're going to be doing this year, is discussing evacuation, educating our neighbors on evacuation, and identifying who might need some assistance so no one's left behind. That's up to us to do that kind of work, and it's up to us to listen, because we can't control the fire. No one can control the fire if it's coming at us, but we can pay attention and listen to our experts and those who are taking action to care for us. So
I'm hearing a suggestion, but not explicitly said. Are those authorities, do they have a plan for staggering exits across our corridor?
Yes. Olivia, what is that? Yeah. Yeah, because you've got that.
Yes. So, well, I guess I'll introduce myself first. My name is Nate Scully. I am the wildfire mitigation, one of two wildfire mitigation specialists with Missoula County. We work for the Office of Emergency Management, and so we have folks in that office who basically operate the Smart 911 system. And they've looked at this neighborhood and the Rattlesnake in general pretty extensively, and they've run IA models, and so they've determined how long it would take, you know, if the fire's coming out of the west, who are we going to evacuate first? Is it going to be the folks over on Douglas, or is it going to be the folks up top? And so they're really looking at how they're going to make that call, and they can send those alerts through Smart 911 targeted to people in specific neighborhoods. So that's not my area of expertise, it's not my office, but that's what I've been told, is that they are looking at how they're going to do this in the most efficient way to create that bottleneck. Because if everybody halfway up the Rattlesnake decides to leave at the same time, the folks at the top aren't going to be able to get out. Well, I don't want to say that, but it might cause issues, right? So they're looking at, are we going to let the folks up top leave first? And it really, like Mary Louise said, it depends on where that fire is, what the fire's doing, and they make predictions based on that.
All right. Okay,
Can you take another question?
Yeah, we'll take one more question.
Could someone please clarify for me what this covers? You had mentioned it was from Woods Gulch North. I live slightly south of Woods Gulch, so what are the plans to incorporate that, or is that part of this? Or probably the greater evacuation plan does the whole Rattlesnake, but what about these other things?
Would you like to join us? Well, we were initially, when we were having meetings, we didn't have, well, you don't have the map anymore. You know, up the hill and in that wooded area into the rec area, that upper level where Madera is, they were not part of our neighborhood group initially. But then the Forest Service begged us to include all of those neighbors in our annual meetings and information meetings because they were having infestation in their trees, which is a fire hazard, and they wanted, if you're having one meeting, you know, have them all come in my front yard. So that's what we did. And so now that's our makeup of our neighborhood. But if you all south of Woods, you know, Woods Gulch there want to join us and be incorporated and enlarge our area, I have no objection to that. So give me a call. It's, yeah.
Yeah, and one thing I'll just add to that, I mean, across the state of Montana, anyone can start the process of becoming Firewise recognized. Maybe you have that passion and the time and the drive to organize. Maybe 10 of your neighbors in your neighborhood. Feel free to email me. I have cards in the back, and that's totally a process that I can help you with. Because I mean, the Rattlesnake Woods is just a phenomenal example of community members bonding or coming together and working towards becoming fire adapted because it's really a group effort. Yeah, and then I'll do, since we were talking about evacuation planning, I'll just throw up, this is where you sign up for Smart 911 if you're not already signed up, and this is how Missoula County is going to notify you in case of an emergency. So it could be wildfire, but it could also be like the wind event we had last summer, and they can target certain areas, so it's not necessarily going to be every alert everywhere. And you can also include personal details, like maybe you have 10 cats, or maybe you want to include that your child's bedroom is on this side of the house in case of a fire, so first responders know where to go. So it's a really neat tool and communication, and it's the way that you're going to get notified in case of an emergency, so I highly recommend signing up. Oh yes, and I have evacuation checklists in the back, so yeah, creating those go bags in case of an evacuation. It's really important that you're able to move fast. That includes things like personal documents, prescriptions, think about your pets, vet records, enough food for your cat, livestock planning, and yeah, that checklist kind of walks you through that. And now's a really great time of year to get those go bags ready. Alrighty, I'm going to shift a little here. And oh, I just had this wonderful photo of the Firewise group. This is from their volunteer workday. Basically, what happened was the Firewise group sent out emails to their neighbors and said, hey, we got a group of people that want to help clean gutters, some people that are able to get on ladders. So then community members signed up, and then a whole group of them went out and helped these neighbors get their yards prepared for fire. And yeah, it's just one of those many really awesome examples of neighbors working together to help each other. Yeah. All right, so I am going to touch on the home ignition zone. Lucy brought this term up. Has anyone heard of this before? Anyone want to take a stab at explaining it? I don't want to put anyone on the spot.
The different areas, fire is likely to come to your house, basically?
Yeah, so yeah, the different areas, the different zones, and thinking about how fire is going to behave when it comes into those zones as it reaches your house and how you can stop your home from igniting, basically. And why does this matter? I just wanted to show this graph right here. We've got Missoula over there, and while these areas are still wildfire prone, where we are here, this especially is important thinking about our home ignition zone. Missoula, a lot of us are in the wildland urban interface, which WUI for short, if you've heard that term before. It's basically where wildfire and humans are kind of encroaching and living together, and the home ignition zone is a key part of that, because as we live in these fire adapted areas where wildfire is an occurrence, living in Montana is living with fire, it's important that we prepare our homes and our property to help mitigate home loss. So just briefly, here's the definition that I have, but the home ignition zone is an area 100 or 200 feet, depending on slope, from the foundation of your house and out, and it's broken up into 3 zones, which I'll just walk through after this. And then, yeah, as I mentioned, everyone's property is different. If your house is on a slope of 30% or more, you're going to extend that home ignition zone out to 200 feet because you want to look at tree spacing. The way slopes are and the way fire travels, it moves uphill, so you'd want to have your trees further spaced out. And then another thing to remember when thinking about the home ignition zone is that embers cause 90% of home loss. There's kind of 3 different ways that a house could get ignited from a wildfire. That could be direct heat, so flame to house. That could be radiant heat, like a marshmallow over a campfire. It's not in the fire, but it's getting cooked because that radiant heat. And then embers. These, during a wildfire event, aren't a few little embers off of a campfire. It could be a blizzard of tens of thousands of embers coming at a structure. And it's been found that they can travel over 1.5 miles ahead of the fire. So even if that fire is invisible, those embers could be traveling from far away. And then I also want to include that the home ignition zone, or HIZ for short, is close to home here in Missoula. In the late, well, yeah, I think it was, I'm going to mess it up, maybe the 80s when Jack Cohen started, whatever. But yeah, so Dr. Jack Cohen, he is a researcher out of the Missoula Fire Lab here, and he ran a lot of experiments alongside other scientists on how do homes ignite for wildfires and how can we stop this, and they ran some really interesting tests looking at where embers come from and where they fall. So these recommendations and the different zones have science and experiments based behind them. And if you want to learn more about that, just Google Jack Cohen or the home ignition zone, and you'll find some really awesome videos that they've created. All right, I'm just going to walk us through the zones here. So with the HIZ, it starts with the home and then out to 5 feet. So this is a really critical part of the home ignition zone. And different things you want to look at here, having non-combustible roof. So your roof is the greatest surface area of your house. That's going to be a spot where embers land. It could potentially take hold. Different materials like a metal roof or even a really well-maintained asphalt roof have been shown to be really ember resistant. And then making sure you take care of your gutters, cleaning out pine needles, leaves, and debris, because that's another spot where embers have taken hold and then started a fire. And then thinking about the siding of your house. Do you have wood siding, wood shingle siding, or Obviously, there's different levels to how you can, the term is hardening your home, and obviously different costs associated with that, but little things do go a long way. Even if you do have wood siding, if you make sure it's well maintained and painted, if you focus on the 5 feet around your home, that's going to really, really help your home stand up against a wildfire, because a lot of people aren't able to just put on metal siding. That can be pretty costly. And then other things like boxing in your eaves and making sure you have 2-pane windows. Oh, and with vents, what's recommended is putting a 1/8 inch metal mesh screening over your vent, or these Vulcan vents are really neat. They were designed to block embers while still having air flow out freely. And then, as I mentioned, the 5 feet of non-combustible material. So instead of having that wood mulch around your home and garden, maybe replacing that with rocks, stones, gravel. And then being mindful of where you keep firewood. If you do have firewood against the house, move that 30 feet or more away from your house. And then people want to live in their homes and they want to have gardens, which totally makes sense. But you can be mindful about the type of landscaping that you pick. Succulents and mosses and things like that are more ember resistant, fire resistant. And you can also be mindful, if you do have a bush that you love with all of your heart and you don't want to get rid of, just make sure that it's not directly touching your home or directly touching a window. So making sure you keep that trimmed back, keep it at a reasonable height, and just make sure you're maintaining it so there's not a bunch of dead leaves built up inside. The one plant that I will say to get rid of is a juniper. If you have a juniper up against your property, make sure you either maintain it really well or remove it. They're a super flammable species of plant that when they catch on fire, they get really hot and torch really high. And yeah, just clearing debris and making sure there's no tree branches hanging over your roof. And little things like removing doormats and cushions and furniture. All of those things have led to home loss in a wildfire, even something just like a doormat. So if you go out of town for a week and it's wildfire season, put all that stuff inside, things like that. Oh, and I will mention with porches, if you have a wooden porch that's elevated, not storing materials underneath that, that's a really common spot for embers to go in and swirl around and then start a fire. It's okay if you have a wood porch. You don't, if you're not able to change that to something like Trex or concrete, just make sure it's well painted and not chipping away with exposed wood. And if you really want to be careful, you can put some sort of like metal flashing up against your house where that wood deck touches your home. And I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but there's so many little details in this zone that are really important to home survival. And then we move out to the intermediate zone. So this is 5 to 30 feet. I've heard this zone be called as lean, green, and clean. So keeping your lawn mowed. This is where maybe some trees start coming. And so making sure you don't have ladder fuels leading into your tree canopy, because that's a way for fire to get into those ladder fuels and up into your tree, torching it and potentially leading to other trees on your property. And yeah, pruning up your tree branches so they're not touching tall grasses. When I think about the home ignition zone, it's a lot about thinking of how fire might travel, how you can stop the path of fire. So things like removing ladder fuels might stop a fire from going up that tree and then shooting tons of embers or flame at your home. And then, yeah, spacing of trees, 18 feet between crowns of trees. And then for a lot of us in Montana, your yard does not look like that. So I've gone to a lot of different properties for home assessments, and what I commonly see, especially in the upper Rattlesnake, is the property goes up against a really steep hill with lots of tall grasses and rocks, and obviously you're not getting a lawnmower up there. So different ways you can mitigate other than tree spacing and removing ladder fuels is thinking about creating paths kind of throughout your property. Those could be like stone paths, just to break up the path of fire if there was one. And then a note on the wooden fences. If you do have wooden fences and they come directly to your house, that could act as a wick for fire to travel and then have direct contact to your home. So putting something like another metal flashing between that wooden fence and your house, or removing the last few panels of that wooden fence so it's not touching your house, is another way to mitigate that. And then, yeah, if you have a propane tank on your property, just making sure you keep it clear of tall grasses and debris. And then we have our extended zone, which goes out to 100 or 200 feet, depending on the slope of your property. And this is, yeah, where we really consider things like tree spacing as we move out. And I'll let Nate talk more about what the county's done with mitigation work on different properties. But yeah, this looks different for everyone depending on where you live. You might live in the type of environment where it's your house and then another house. And you might wonder, okay, I have a good home ignition zone, but they don't. That's when it's really important to have dialogue, like what they're doing in the Upper Rattlesnake with their neighbors, because there could be home-to-home contact. Every situation's different, but that is why I recommend, if you are interested, is signing up for a home wildfire risk assessment. This is a service provided for free through the DNRC. If you just go and Google DNRC home assessment, you just put in your name and your address, and then it'll shoot an email to us, and I can set up a time for a home assessment. It's really hard to explain the home ignition zone in a broad way because you all have different situations and different properties. So while all those recommendations totally apply to everyone, I think it's a really awesome opportunity for face-to-face dialogue. And what happens is I would give personal recommendations based on your property and your home. And it's just an opportunity to ask questions and get to know each other more. And yeah, in summary, the home ignition zone is science-based. A lot of it focuses on mitigating where embers might land. Something I like to tell property owners or homeowners when I go to their property is think about the natural flow of your house. Do you have a constant pile of pine needles, or maybe in the winter, does that look like a snowbank? That's going to be the same area where embers are going to target in an event of a wildfire. So make sure you don't have a giant juniper tree right there. And then, yeah, it seems like an overwhelming list, but starting with the immediate zone and the home and working out is critical. Little things go a long way. Cleaning your gutters, raking pine needles away from your house. It doesn't have to break the bank. Little things can make a huge difference. And understanding that everyone has different abilities or time, working together. Maybe you know a high schooler that's looking to make a couple extra bucks and might be able to get up on a ladder and clean out your gutters. Reach into your communities, groups like this, maybe a church, just thinking of ways where you can help each other out depending on your different situations. And then, yes, signing up for Smart 911 is a key part of being wildfire prepared, is being ready for an evacuation. And then lastly, just living in Montana is living with wildfire. By preparing your home and having a more fire-adapted community, you're also making it safer for first responders. So when they do need to go into the Upper Rattlesnake, you're mitigating it so that fire is ideally less extreme and they're more able to defend your home. And I think that's all I had. Yeah, I think just to summarize is, again, not living in a silo and really working together to make your neighborhood more fire adapted is going to be critical as we go forward and as we try to protect our homes from wildfires living in the wild and urban interface. Yeah. I think that's all I have. I can hand it over to Nate and then we could do questions after that. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm the wildfire mitigation specialist with the county. I want to introduce our program a little bit. So we are increasing our capacity. We're hiring 2 more people in the next month. There will be another mitigation specialist and then a wildfire preparedness coordinator. I don't know if anybody here worked with Max Rebholz, but somebody is going to be taking over his position as the coordinator. And so we'll have a team of 4 people, so hopefully we can really take on a lot more work in the next couple of years. And our goal is to reach everybody across the county, and that includes everybody from Condon, you know, all through the Missoula Valley. So there's a lot of people. I think one of those slides show that there's almost 18,000 homes in Missoula County that are in the wildland-urban interface, and that's, I think, puts us in the 90th percentile across the entire country for one of the most at-risk counties across the, not only country, but the state. So our goal as the Missoula County Wildfire Mitigation Program, who is under the Office of Emergency Management, is to help people, help homeowners and landowners conduct these thinning projects and fuel mitigation projects. So we received a large grant, and that is to help fund a cost share program that we have to help break down that financial barrier, because I know that it is expensive to do a lot of this work. But what we can do is similar to the DNRC and Olivia. We can do home assessments. We come offer, you know, personalized advice based on your property, things you can do not only to your fuels but also to your home. Right now, our funding only covers fuel management, so that's you know, cutting junipers away from your home, thinning out forests, that sort of thing. But the program has goals to try to acquire some funds to help people pay for some of the home hardening things, like installing vents in your gable or screens in your gable vents. Maybe even one day we can help, you know, do a cost share for siding, folks who have old wood siding that's concerning, because those are extremely expensive projects. So really that's our goal, and a big piece of it is, you know, using this money to engage the community, not being viewed as, you know, the county's going to come in and do this for you, but this is really an opportunity for you guys as homeowners and neighbors to engage, do the work, and create more fire resilient communities. A big piece of it is that if one neighbor is going to do it, it really takes everybody to be on the same page to create that really fire resilient neighborhood. A couple things I wanted to touch on is the Firewise, and I know there was a question of how can we be involved. Firewise is an awesome program. It gets everybody on the same page about what needs to be done. They put together these community chip days and vegetation management, and they help each other clear their neighbors' gutters. And I think that it's a great start for getting people on the same page and motivated, but you don't have to be a Firewise community to, you know, participate in fire mitigation. This money is available to everybody across the county, except for folks in Lolo and Frenchtown and Huson. Sorry. We're working on that. But yeah, so really, like, our services are available to everybody. So if you're interested in doing work, I want people to reach out to me. Olivia, is this available to people here?
Yeah, there are agendas in the back with my email and Nate's email, some websites that we discussed today. Yeah.
So yeah, send me an email. It's inscully@missoulacounty.us. And again, it's at the very bottom of the agenda sheet. So reach out to me. I can come out, take a look at your property, talk through everything. If you have concerns, you know, I understand that people don't like to see their trees cut. You know, it's part of living in the woods is living in the woods. So there's always a little bit of give or take, and we can always put together a treatment plan that's right for you. We do have sort of a set of standards that we have to meet if the county's going to fund it. But most people we work with are actually pretty pleased with it. There's always concerns at the beginning as they're going to come in and clear cut all my trees, and that's never the case. So other than that, that kind of sums up what my role is in this whole thing, and if anybody has any questions. Yes, Mary Louise.
I know that when we have properties assessed.
Okay. When we have properties assessed, having your house assessed, you know, let's say that's all you have with a couple of trees, that's one thing. And then having a lot of acreage with heavily wooded forestry, you know, forest around you is another thing. And various agencies can send someone out to do these assessments, and those two things are very different. So can you address that and who does it? And then once you have it assessed, what are the next steps to get the work, to get the grant and get the work done?
Yeah, so our primary goal is to address that home ignition zone because, as Olivia mentioned, that's the most important thing. But we can fund general forest management thinning projects as well. So if you say you have 20 acres, we'll address the home ignition zone, and then we can tack on the additional 20 acres to that project. And that's just looking at general thinning, reducing understory fuels, reducing ladder fuels, reducing dead, dying, diseased trees, and that sort of thing. So that is something that we can help fund. I guess let me back up. So the way the grant works is the county can fund up to $1,900 or 75% of the project. So a forestry contractor will come out, give you a bid. They typically bid per acre. So if you have 1 acre, they might give you a number of between $2,000 and $3,000 to treat that acre. If the bid is $2,000, the county can contribute 75% of that. If the bid is $3,000, once we hit that $1,900 contribution, that's as high as the county can go. It typically, across the board with all of our projects, comes out to about 65 to 75% cost share, which is pretty substantial. And if there's, more specific questions about how this works, feel free to ask me. Yes.
So this is all very interesting.
Turn it on.
Anyway, I can talk loud. So this is all very interesting, and I would hate to lose my house, but I'm way more concerned about my life. And I haven't heard a whole lot about what to do if the traffic gridlock is there and the fire is bearing down and you're not driving out of the Rattlesnake. What to do? Like, should we jump in the creek? Should we start running downhill? Is there anything we can do to save our lives? That kind of thing would be really, really helpful.
Yeah, I understand. That's a tough question. I'd tag on to what Olivia said earlier, making sure you're signed up for Smart 911, making sure you're evacuation planning now. Don't evacuate plan when the smoke's in the air in August, July, those types of things. Be cognizant of what's going on around you. Evacuate early, self-evacuate. Don't wait for the law enforcement or the people to tell you to evacuate. If you feel you need to leave, you need to leave. Do that on your own accord. And then identify areas in your neighborhood you can shelter in place. Find places that, or potentially you could do that. A wide open meadow, a grassy area, those types of things. If you end up in a gridlock traffic and something like that, and you can't escape, know those areas in your neighborhood that if you have to, you could potentially evacuate in place. But the biggest thing is, don't wait. Be ahead of it. Plan now. It's March. Plan and have those kinds of things in place so you know what you're going to do when the smoke's in the air and you have to evacuate. And then don't wait for someone to tell you. If you feel like you need to go, that you go at that point in time. Those are the types of things. So it's tough. There's a lot of areas in the Missoula County. There's a lot of areas with one way in, one way out. Rattlesnake's not the only one. They're all over the county. It's something that we're always being cognizant of, because the other thing is as the homeowners are evacuating out, first responders are trying to get in, and that's just going to add and compound to the problem. So the more you guys can be better prepared and ready to evacuate when you need to evacuate, the better everyone's going to be, kind of deal. So hopefully that answers your question.
Can you speak to the mitigation efforts that were done in, I believe, 2016 or 2017 by the Forest Service, and whether there's going to be any more projects like that in the future? Or I know they weren't able to do as much as they wanted to because of public comment, but
I can
yeah.
I can answer very, just touch on it a little bit. So. The project he's talking to is called WAM, or Wildfire Adapted Missoula. The Lolo had a project planned area, kind of encompassing the greater Missoula area, and they started doing a bunch of work. Started in 2016, 2017. I just don't know where that currently resides. But yeah, they've started doing some work up in the Marshall Canyon area, they kind of finished up the last of whatever work they had done, burning the piles last year and that kind of stuff. But I don't know what the rest of that is because unfortunately I couldn't be here today. So.
I have a strange question here. Has anybody that you know of, anybody live in the Rattlesnake or anywhere so it has ever designed an automatic sprinkling system that works, they could turn on to wet off their roof or to wet the side walls? It's an automatic thing in case of an emergency.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of products out there that are available to the homeowners and the public if they want to invest in something like that. That could add to the home ignition zone, doing all the work like Olivia talked about. But there's other things you can do that can kind of set up like an emergency thing where you can have a mister or a sprinkler or something set up on your house that can also aid in that when the embers are falling on your structure. So you just have to kind of go online, research it, and see what's available out there. There's all kinds of things. So.
Just a follow-up to that question, you know, many years ago, a bunch of our neighbors did that, and I did that on my roof too. But the problem with that is unless you have your own generator, you're going to lose electricity if that wildfire is coming through. So it's not going to be functional anyway. I mean, you've got to, and if you have a generator, which is full of gas, and that wildfire is coming, you know, it's sort of like, where are you going to place it? You know, the whole thing.
Well, the big thing about that is I don't think the city and the county want all of us turning on our sprinklers, right? I mean, that's a water pressure problem, so that's not a solution because then you're going to hurt the whole process of trying to fight the fire. That's my comment about that. I am concerned about one very specific thing, and that is the rebuilding of the bridge on Lolo over Rattlesnake Creek. Does anybody know about that? I mean, they're already starting to do work, and I'm assuming that's going to happen this summer. And when they do that, that's blocking one possible way out of the valley. Has anybody thought about what do we do while that's happening? Are we just going to cross our fingers and hope we don't have a bad fire season this summer?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm the county guy, so that's me. But I don't work for the roads department, so really I have no idea what they're doing. I would hope that they took that into consideration. Sounds like maybe they didn't. Maybe they have a strict timeline where they're going to try to get this done in a week before August. You know, I believe that Lolo Street is still city, but I don't know who is conducting that project. It is? Okay. So it's not me.
But you think it is the city? Because I can contact them.
Okay, sounds like it is the city.
One thing I'll add to things like road closures, this could happen anywhere throughout Missoula County in a one-way in, one-way out type of neighborhood, and I know Lolo Street is a really critical part of that. OEM does, with their simulations, they do practice things like, okay, Lolo Street's closed. How do we mitigate that? Who do we send first? They could run, it's 5 p.m. and it's rush hour. Let's add 1,000 more cars to the Rattlesnake. What does that look like if there's a fire on Waterworks? So at least from OEM's side, and in terms of wildfire evacuation, they run simulations taking that into account. That's the only thing I'd add to that. But yeah.
My question is for the community organizers. What was the strongest pushback you found among your neighbors?
I guess I can answer it in the way of, and that's why it works with the community, partnerships, is some of the pushback is like we are skeptical of government, and so that's why walking around, knocking on doors and talking to people and then letting it percolate for a while and not pushing anybody. None of us want to be in the position, and none of us are on the board of like, you've got to move that juniper, and we're not blaming anybody. So it's really getting to know our neighbors, as Olivia said, to figuring out, okay, you're hooked in or you need a medical supply. I mean, that actually helped in our wind event. We knew which neighbors needed to borrow a generator or something like that. So it's taken a while to percolate, and honestly, it's been a really beneficial thing.
In efforts several of us were made over the last several years in the Lincoln Hills area, I can cite several different things that were sources or ideas of pushback from the thing I think you had said of they're going to make me do changes to my landscaping or house that I don't want to, which is not true, to the next fire that comes through is going to be, they wouldn't know this term, a mega fire, and there's no hope anyhow, why bother? To also plain denial, it's not going to happen. So it's a variety of different sources of resistance, and I'm sure there are others.
There appears to be a lot of potential fuel sources along the parks along Rattlesnake Creek. I'm thinking Tom Thumb, Bugby Park, Greeno Park, lots of woods. Who's responsible for that, and do they have a plan to deal with it?
Yeah, so a lot of these are city parks, and we are working with them. There's another one that comes to mind, Miller Creek, that's in pretty bad shape. And so my stance on it is that if we're going to ask people to do this to their own property, we need to make sure that we're leading by example and taking care of our own. So it's definitely a conversation that we're having. The funding is available for some of that stuff as well, which is hopeful, because like city budgets, you know, they don't have a ton of money to spend on that stuff. So yes, there's definitely fuels treatments planned for some of those public spaces.
Right, any other questions out there? All right, well, let's thank the speakers. Thanks again, everyone, for coming.